I stood outside my luxury condo door, fumbling with my keycard. 6 months in Paris for executive training had been incredible, but I was exhausted and ready to collapse into my own bed. The key wouldn't work. I tried again, sliding it slowly. Nothing. The red light blinked mockingly at me. Maybe the battery died, I muttered, reaching for my phone to call building management. That's when I heard it, a familiar voice from inside my apartment. Oh, I thought I heard someone out there. My sister Leah's head popped out of my door, wearing that fake smile I remembered from childhood. My stomach dropped. What was she doing here? We'd barely spoken in years, except for the past 2 months when she suddenly started calling again. Leah? I stared at her, confused. What are you doing in my apartment? We weren't expecting you back so soon, she said, that plastic smile never wavering. Her tone was light, casual, like finding her in my home was perfectly normal. I pushed past her, stepping into what used to be my pristine living space. My jaw dropped. This couldn't be my apartment. Toys were scattered across my white marble floors like confetti after a hurricane. Juice boxes sat abandoned on my Italian leather couch, leaving dark stains. Crayon marks decorated my walls. The coffee table I'd saved months to buy was covered in sticky fingerprints and crumbs. Sorry about the mess, Leah said, not sounding sorry at all. The kids have been cooped up inside today. Kids? What kids? I spun around, taking in the chaos. My beautiful home looked like a daycare center had exploded. Dirty dishes were piled on my dining table. Someone had left a half-eaten sandwich on my expensive rug. Leah, what is this? My voice came out sharper than I intended. She shrugged, picking up a toy truck. Well, since you weren't using the place, we figured we'd crash here for a bit. You can take the guest room. We've already got our stuff set up in the master bedroom. The guest room? In my own apartment? I felt like I was living in some bizarre dream. 6 months ago, I'd left my spotless, organized home. Now it looked like a tornado had hit it, and my sister was acting like she owned the place. Before I could respond, heavy footsteps echoed from the hallway. A large man walked into my living room, like he owned it, wearing a stained t-shirt and ripped jeans. He threw himself onto my couch without even acknowledging me, then propped his dirty sneakers right on my custom sandalwood coffee table. The table I'd bought in Italy, the one that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Rick, this is my sister Savvy, Leah said cheerfully. Savvy, meet my husband. Husband? When did Leah get married? I stared at this stranger making himself comfortable on my furniture. He barely glanced at me, just grabbed the remote and started flipping through channels. Nice place, Rick grunted, not looking away from the TV. Real nice. I stood there, speechless. My sister had gotten married and I wasn't even invited? Not that we were close, but still. And now this man was treating my home like his personal lounge. How long have you two been married? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. 3 years, Leah said. We would have invited you, but you were so busy with work and everything. 3 years. She'd been married for 3 years and never told me. I grabbed Leah's arm. Kitchen. Now. The kitchen was even worse than the living room. Dirty dishes filled my sink, and something sticky covered my granite counters. My expensive appliances looked like they hadn't been cleaned in weeks. The smell hit me. Old food mixed with something sour. Leah, what are you and your family doing in my apartment? I whispered, trying to stay calm. She put on that fake, innocent look I remembered from when we were kids. We had nowhere else to go, Savvy. We lost our place last month, and I remembered you were going to be away for training. We figured we'd stay here temporarily since no one was around. You never asked me. I tried calling, but you were always busy with your fancy executive program. She picked at her nails, avoiding my eyes. We planned to be gone before you got back. But you're not gone. Leah's expression shifted, and for a moment I saw something cold in her eyes. Where exactly are we supposed to go? You want us sleeping on the streets? The guilt hit me like a punch. That's how Leah always operated, make me feel bad for her choices. I barely slept that night in my own guest room. The bed smelled like someone else had been using it. Through the thin walls, I could hear Rick's loud snoring from my master bedroom. Kids were running around until almost midnight. The next morning, I walked into my kitchen hoping for coffee, but found something else waiting for me. A thick stack of envelopes on my counter. What's this? I asked Leah, who was feeding cereal to two kids I'd never seen before. "Oh, those are all the bills that came while you were gone," she said casually. "We saved them for you since you're the homeowner." I flipped through the stack. Electric bill, gas bill, cable, internet, building maintenance fees. 6 months worth. My hand started shaking as I added up the numbers in my head. "Leah, I wasn't here for 6 months. I shouldn't have any bills this high." She shrugged. "Well, we had to keep the lights on and the heat running. Kids need comfort, you know? You need to pay these bills. You're the ones who use the utilities." Leah's face twisted into an ugly expression. "Oh, so now that you're some big-time executive, you think you can insult me and my family for not having much money?" A whole week passed, and Leah's family showed no signs of leaving. If anything, they seemed more settled than before. Rick had claimed my recliner as his personal throne. The kids had taken over my spare bedroom, turning it into a playroom. I started noticing other things too. Charges on my credit card that I didn't make. Groceries, takeout orders, even toys from the toy store downstairs. When I confronted Leah about it, she claimed the kids needed things and she'd pay me back. "When?" I asked. "Soon as Rick finds work," she said. But Rick spent his days on my couch, watching TV and eating my food. He showed no interest in job hunting. Meanwhile, my beautiful apartment was falling apart. Stains appeared on furniture daily. Someone had broken one of my picture frames. Every morning, I woke up hoping they'd announce they were leaving. Every evening, I came home to find them more comfortable than before. It was like they were slowly erasing me from my own home. The worst part was how normal they acted about it, like I was the guest in my own place. "Savvy, you wouldn't really put my kids on the street, would you?" Leah asked when I brought up them leaving again. She was holding her youngest daughter, a sweet little girl who looked nothing like her scheming mother. The child smiled at me with innocent eyes, and my heart melted a little. "That's not what I'm saying," I started. "Because that's what it sounds like," Leah continued, her voice getting emotional. "My children have been through enough already. Their father lost his job, we lost our apartment. They finally feel safe somewhere, and now you want to throw them out?" The guilt crashed over me like a wave. These kids didn't ask for any of this. They were just caught in the middle of their parents' bad choices. "How long do you need?" I asked quietly. "Just a few more weeks," Leah promised. "Rick's got some leads on jobs. We'll be out of here soon, I swear." I wanted to believe her. Part of me remembered the sister I used to know before life got complicated. Maybe she really was trying to get back on her feet. But deep down, something felt wrong about this whole situation. I came home from work on Friday to find my apartment full of strangers. Music blasted from my speakers. People I'd never seen before were drinking from my wine glasses and eating food from my kitchen. Someone had pushed my furniture around to make a dance floor. "What is this?" I shouted over the noise. Leah appeared with a red plastic cup in her hand, swaying slightly. "Just a little celebration. Rick's friend got a new job." "You're throwing a party in my apartment without asking me?" "Relax, Savvy. Live a little." I pushed through the crowd to my bedroom, but the door was locked. Through the window I could see people in there too. Strangers were using my private space. In the kitchen I found the receipts. Pizza orders, alcohol delivery, party supplies, all charged to my credit card. Hundreds of dollars for a party I never approved. That was it. I'd had enough. "Leah?" I found her by the balcony. "Everyone needs to leave. Now." "You're being dramatic," she said, rolling her eyes. "And tomorrow morning, you and your family need to find somewhere else to stay." Her face changed instantly. The fake sweetness disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. "We'll see about that," she said. I woke up at sunrise, determined to reclaim my home. But when I walked into the living room, I heard sirens outside my building. Red and blue lights flashed through my windows. "What's going on?" I asked Rick, who was pacing by the door. "Leah called the cops," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Why would she?" The door burst open. 2 police officers walked in, followed by Leah, who was holding a bag of ice to her arm. "That's her," Leah said, pointing at me with tears in her eyes. "She hit me last night when I wouldn't leave. She's been threatening my children too." My mouth fell open. "What? I never touched you." "Ma'am, we need you to step outside," one officer said firmly. "This is my apartment." She's lying. But Leah was crying now. showing the officers what looked like a fresh bruise on her forearm. "She grabbed me right here," she sobbed. "I'm scared for my kids." "Officers, please check the lease," I said desperately. "This is my home. My name is on everything." They did check, but Leah had an answer for that too. "She lets us stay here," Leah explained. But when I told her we needed more time, she got violent. The restraining order was filed that same day. I stood on the sidewalk outside my own building, holding a temporary restraining order that banned me from entering my home. The security guard, who'd known me for 3 years, looked at me with confused sympathy. "I'm sorry, Miss Savvy," he said, "but I have to follow the court order. You can't go up to your apartment." "This is insane," I muttered, staring up at my windows. I could see movement inside, my sister and her family carrying on like nothing happened. An hour later, the security guard called my cell phone. "Miss Savvy, there are some bags down here for you." I rushed to the lobby and found 5 black garbage bags sitting by the mailboxes. My heart sank as I looked inside them. My designer suits were wrinkled and stuffed carelessly inside. My jewelry box was at the bottom of one bag, scratched and dented. In another bag, I found my mother's photo albums, the corners bent and pages scattered. These were irreplaceable memories, and they'd been shoved into trash bags like garbage. The security guard watched me sadly as I loaded the bags into my car. "You need somewhere to stay tonight?" he asked quietly. I nodded, fighting back tears. My own sister had locked me out of my home and treated my belongings like trash. I checked into a hotel and immediately called my company's legal department. As a senior executive, I had access to confidential legal support for personal matters. Within an hour, I was sitting across from Margaret Chen, one of the city's top real estate attorneys. "This is quite a situation," Margaret said, reviewing my documents. "Your sister has been clever about this." "What do you mean?" "She's claiming domestic violence, which gives her immediate protection under tenant rights laws. Even though she's not on your lease, the restraining order creates a legal gray area." My heart sank. "So she can just stay in my apartment?" "Not forever," Margaret assured me. "But we need to be strategic. Any aggressive moves on your part will only strengthen her position. We need evidence that she's lying." Margaret explained our options. We could fight the restraining order in court, but that would take weeks. We could try to prove Leah never had permission to stay, but she'd probably claim it was a verbal agreement. "The good news," Margaret said, "is that she's made some mistakes. Using your credit cards without permission is fraud. We just need to document everything carefully." For the first time in days, I felt hope. Margaret's private investigator, David, met me at a coffee shop near my building. He was a quiet man with sharp eyes who specialized in domestic disputes. "I talked to your building staff," he said, sliding a folder across the table. "Your concierge remembers the day your sister arrived." I opened the folder to find photocopies of building records. 2 days after I left for Paris, Leah had shown up with a locksmith. She'd told the concierge there was a family emergency and she needed to check on my apartment. "She used your last name," David explained. "Told them she was Mrs. Sullivan, your sister-in-law, and had emergency access rights." But that's not true. The concierge didn't know that. She showed them a fake note, supposedly from you, giving her permission to enter in emergencies. David pulled out another document, a receipt from the locksmith. Leah had paid cash to have all my locks changed that same day. "This proves premeditation," he said. "She didn't just stumble into staying at your place. She planned to take it over from the beginning." I stared at the evidence, feeling sick. My own sister had been plotting against me for months, maybe longer. The sudden phone calls, the fake friendliness, it had all been part of her plan. That night in my hotel room, memories flooded back. I remembered being 12 years old, getting blamed when Leah snuck out past curfew. She'd convinced our mother that I was lying about seeing her climb out the bedroom window. "Savvy's just jealous," teenage Leah had said with crocodile tears. "She makes up stories about me because she wants attention." Our mother, exhausted from working 2 jobs, believed the daughter who cried the loudest. I got grounded for lying, while Leah got sympathy for having a difficult sister. The pattern continued through high school. When Leah got caught shoplifting, she claimed I'd dared her to do it. When she crashed our mother's car, she said I'd been distracting her. Somehow, everything was always my fault. I'd thought moving away for college would end it. I built my own life, my own career, my own success. But Leah had found a way to poison that too. Now I understood why she'd started calling 2 months ago, being unusually nice. She'd been setting me up, making me feel guilty for being distant so I wouldn't question her later. I'd fallen for the same manipulation that had controlled me as a child. David called the next morning with more evidence. "Your building has security cameras in the lobby," he said. "I got footage from the past 6 months." We met at Margaret's office to review the videos. There it was in digital black and white. Leah entering my building with suitcases and boxes just 2 days after my departure. But the most damning footage came from 3 weeks later. Leah was at my mailbox, using a key to open it and remove my mail. In another clip, she was in the lobby arguing with a delivery man, claiming to be the apartment owner. "She's been intercepting your mail," Margaret pointed out. "That's federal mail fraud." The videos showed Rick moving furniture around, kids running wild in the lobby, and Leah giving tours to friends like she owned the place. In one particularly infuriating clip, she was showing off my apartment balcony to visitors. "This establishes a clear timeline," Margaret said. "She moved in the moment you left, changed the locks illegally, and has been impersonating you to building staff." David had also found something else, Leah's real address. She hadn't lost an apartment at all. She was still paying rent on a studio across town. "She lied about being homeless," I said, feeling anger burn in my chest. Margaret filed a motion to dismiss the restraining order, backed by mountains of evidence. But Leah's public defender fought back, claiming I was using my wealth and privilege to intimidate a struggling single mother. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, I was still locked out of my own home. I drove by my building every day, watching from the street. I could see Leah on my balcony, talking on her phone and laughing. Sometimes Rick would appear, drinking beer and throwing the cans into my expensive planters. The security guard, Michael, started texting me updates. "She ordered furniture today," one message read. "Big delivery truck." They were redecorating my apartment, making it theirs permanently. My company was being understanding about the situation, but I could tell my colleagues were confused. How does someone get locked out of their own luxury condo? It sounded unbelievable, even to me. "Hang in there," my boss said during a check-in call. "We've all seen family disputes get messy. Just take care of the legal stuff and get back to work when you can." If only it were that simple. David made a breakthrough that changed everything. My building security system had cloud backup that even I didn't know about. Hidden cameras in the hallways had been recording constantly. "Your sister doesn't know about these," David explained, pulling up video files on his laptop. "Look at this." The footage was crystal clear. There was Leah alone in my hallway 3 weeks ago, opening my mail and reading my bank statements. In another video, she was photographing my credit cards with her phone. But the most shocking video was from just 2 days ago. Leah was sitting at my dining table with Rick, and they were clearly planning something. The audio was muffled, but I could make out words like account, transfer, and overseas. "They're planning something big," David said grimly. "This isn't just about free housing anymore." Margaret reviewed the footage and immediately called the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. "If they're planning to steal from your bank accounts, this becomes a federal case," she explained. I felt a chill run down my spine. My sister wasn't just squatting in my apartment, she was planning to rob me blind. "What do I do now?" I asked. "We set a trap," Margaret said with a cold smile. More memories surfaced as I waited for the legal wheels to turn. I remembered the day after our mother's funeral, when Leah cornered me at the lawyer's office. "Mom left you everything," she'd said, tears streaming down her face. "The house, the savings, everything. What about me?" It was true. Our mother had left me her estate. But it wasn't because she loved me more. It was because she knew I'd use the money responsibly, while Leah would blow through it in months. "I'll share it with you," I'd promised. "Half of everything." But when I tried to give Leah her portion, she wanted it all at once. When I suggested we set up a trust fund to make the money last, she exploded. "You think I'm too stupid to handle my own inheritance?" she'd screamed. "You're just like Mom. You think you're better than me." That was the last real conversation we'd had until 2 months ago. For 3 years, Leah had refused my calls and ignored my letters. She'd built up resentment and blame, painting me as the villain in her story. Now I understood. This wasn't about housing. This was about revenge. A mysterious email appeared in my inbox from an anonymous account. The subject line read, "You should know what your sister is saying." Inside was an audio file. I recognized the voice immediately. Rick, Leah's husband, talking to someone on the phone. "We're living in this fancy place now," Rick was saying. "My sister-in-law's some big-shot executive, and she's loaded. We got access to everything, her mail, her credit cards, even her computer passwords." My blood ran cold as I listened. The best part? She can't even get in here now. We got her locked out with that restraining order. My wife's a genius. She bruised herself up real good and played the victim perfectly. The person on the other end said something I couldn't hear. Then Rick laughed. "Oh, we're not stopping here. Leah found her work login stuff. This chick's got access to millions at her company. We're gonna retire early, if you know what I mean." I saved the file immediately and forwarded it to Margaret and David. This was the evidence we needed, Rick admitting to fraud and conspiracy. But it also meant I was in immediate danger. They weren't just squatting, they were planning to steal millions from my company accounts. Margaret called an emergency meeting with the FBI's cybercrime unit. Agent Sarah Kim listened to the audio file with growing alarm. "How much access does your sister have to your work accounts?" Agent Kim asked. "Too much," I admitted. "I have executive-level access to our main operating funds. If she got into my laptop or found my passwords..." Agent Kim exchanged glances with her partner. "We need to move fast, but we also need to catch them in the act to make charges stick." They explained the plan. I would reset all my passwords and notify my company's IT security, but quietly. We'd monitor my accounts for any suspicious activity. When Leah and Rick made their move, the FBI would be ready. "What if they succeed in transferring money?" I asked. "We'll reverse any transfers immediately," Agent Kim assured me. "But we need them to actually attempt the crime. Conspiracy charges are harder to prove than attempted wire fraud." I felt like I was walking a tightrope. If something went wrong, millions of dollars and my career could be destroyed. But I trusted the FBI. They'd handled cases like this before. "How long do we wait?" I asked. "Not long," Agent Kim said. "Your audio file suggests they're planning to move soon." The condo board met on Thursday evening. Margaret had requested an emergency hearing, and I was finally allowed to present my case. The board members, all wealthy professionals who owned units in the building, listened with growing outrage as Margaret outlined the evidence. "This is highly irregular," the board president said after reviewing the security footage. "Ms. Sullivan's guest privileges were never properly authorized." "More than that," Margaret added, "she's been impersonating the unit owner and committing mail fraud on the premises." The property manager, who'd been fooled by Leah's lies, looked embarrassed. "We followed standard emergency procedures," he said defensively. "She seemed legitimate." "She exploited your kindness," Margaret replied smoothly. "But now we know the truth." The board voted unanimously to revoke any guest privileges for Leah and Rick. They also issued a formal trespass notice, meaning the police could arrest them for remaining on the property. However, the board president warned, "We can't override the restraining order. That's a separate legal matter." It was progress, but not enough. I was still locked out while they were inside, planning to steal millions. That night, Agent Kim called with an update. "We detected login attempts on your company accounts. They're making their move." Friday morning, my phone buzzed with an alert from my company's finance department. A transfer request had been submitted from my executive account, $2.2 million, to an overseas bank in the Cayman Islands. My hands shook as I stared at the notification. Leah had actually done it. She was trying to steal over $2 million from my company. I immediately called Agent Kim. They took the bait. "We're moving now," she said. "Stay away from the building until we give you the all clear." From my hotel room, I watched the news helicopter footage on TV. FBI agents were surrounding my building. Police cars blocked the street. I could see tiny figures on my balcony. Leah and Rick, probably wondering what was happening. My phone rang constantly. Colleagues, friends, even my boss calling to ask if I was okay. The story was spreading fast. Executive sister attempts $2 million corporate theft. 2 hours later, Agent Kim called back. We got them. The relief was overwhelming. It was finally over. What happens now, I asked. They're being processed on federal charges. Wire fraud, identity theft, computer fraud, conspiracy. With the evidence we have, they'll likely plead guilty. I could finally go home. The arrest footage was all over the news. Leah and Rick being led out of my building in handcuffs while their children cried in the lobby. It was heartbreaking to watch, even after everything they'd done. Rick's parents, the children's grandparents, arrived within an hour. They were kind, elderly people who looked devastated by their son's choices. We had no idea. The grandfather told me when I finally returned to my building, "We're so sorry for what they did to you." The grandmother was crying as she hugged the children. "These babies don't deserve this," she said. "We'll take good care of them." Watching those innocent kids leave with their suitcases broke my heart. They'd been used as pawns in their parents' scheme, and now they were paying the price. "Will you press charges?" the grandfather asked quietly. I looked at those sweet children, confused and scared. "Against your son and my sister, yes, but the kids will always be welcome in my life if they want that someday." The grandfather squeezed my hand gratefully. "You're a good person," he said. "Better than our family deserved." As their car pulled away, I felt sadness mixed with relief. Justice was served, but at such a terrible cost. I stood in my doorway, looking at the wreckage of my home. 6 months of neglect and chaos had destroyed almost everything I'd worked to create. The walls were scuffed and marked with crayon. My expensive furniture was stained and broken. Someone had spilled red wine on my white carpet, leaving a stain shaped like a map of some unknown country. But it was mine again. I walked through each room, taking inventory. My bedroom had been ransacked, drawers pulled out, closets emptied. They'd been searching for more passwords, more access to my accounts. In the kitchen, I found notebooks where Leah had been practicing my signature, pages and pages of my name written over and over until she got it right. The sight made me nauseous. On my desk, I discovered printed emails between Leah and Rick, planning their theft. They'd been so confident, so sure they'd get away with it. Reading their casual discussion of ruining my life was surreal. I gathered all the evidence and put it in a box for the FBI. Then I opened every window in the apartment, letting fresh air chase away the stale smell of betrayal. Slowly, carefully, I began to clean. Each scrubbed surface felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The restoration took weeks. Professional cleaners, new furniture, fresh paint. Slowly, my home started feeling like mine again. But some things couldn't be replaced. My mother's photo albums were damaged. Years of family memories were crinkled and torn. I spent hours carefully smoothing out pages, trying to preserve what was left. Many of my mother's jewelry pieces were missing. Leah had probably sold them or hidden them somewhere. The police found some items in the apartment, but others were gone forever. The financial impact was significant too. Between legal fees, restoration costs, and replacing stolen items, I'd spent nearly $50,000. But I could afford it, and my insurance covered some of the damage. The emotional cost was harder to calculate. I'd lost my sister, not to death, but to greed and jealousy. The Leah I remembered from childhood was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. But I'd also gained something, absolute certainty about who I was and what I valued. Family wasn't just blood, it was trust, respect, and love. Leah had chosen to destroy those bonds. My real family was the people who'd supported me through this crisis. Margaret, David, Agent Kim, even Michael, the security guard who'd kept me updated. 6 months later, I was sitting in my restored living room, sipping coffee and reading the morning news. The apartment looked better than ever, cleaner, brighter, more organized. On my side table sat a single framed photo, my mother and me at my college graduation. Her smile was proud and genuine, the way I remembered her best. Beside it was a small vase with fresh flowers, a weekly tradition I'd started as a reminder that beauty required constant care. Leah and Rick had each received 3-year federal prison sentences. The children were thriving with their grandparents, who sent me occasional updates and photos. I'd started a college fund for each kid, hoping to give them better choices than their parents had made. My building had upgraded its security procedures. New residents received thorough background checks, and the concierge staff was trained to verify any emergency access requests. I'd also changed personally. The experience taught me to trust my instincts and set firm boundaries. When people showed me who they were, I believed them the first time. My phone buzzed with a text from my boss. "Great work on the quarterly reports. Dinner to celebrate?" I smiled and typed back, "Absolutely." Life was good again. Not perfect, but honest and peaceful. And sometimes that's all you need. Home again.